it's not just the message that you intend to say, it's the words you say, how you say it, your nonverbal communication, how you relate with people. And the people who are going to be very effective in life, in any role, in any job, you are going to be people who can be effective public speakers. Toastmasters is a great place to meet new people. I tell some people it's a little bit like inexpensive community therapy.
Toast and Tea, where we have all the tea, tips, and stories, here to inspire you. Hosted by Little Norway's Toastmasters. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Toast and Tea. We have the pleasure of interviewing Roger Zabinski today. So Roger I've known him for a couple years in Toastmasters, in Little Norway's Toastmasters. His field, I think, the work he does is such a contrast to some of his speeches because they're so funny. They're so humorous. His humor just comes through so effortlessly. And today he's going to be sharing his experience on why he decided to get into Toastmasters and what is his motivation for staying in it. So Roger, can you share with the audience your experience?
Sure. First, a little bit about me. I'm a scientist, a biochemist, and I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry for academic and industry, and then teaching for about 25 years, and then the last 10 years working in Food and Drug Administration, also involved in the pharmaceutical industry. And it's been a joy. I've enjoyed developing medicines for cancer, that sort of thing. I've also been an elected official, community leader, and I've worked in industry, academics for many years. And I've enjoyed that immensely. I've also been an elected official and community leader in 3 different states, in Idaho and New York City and Bremerton, Seattle area. And Toastmasters was a joy for me because it helped me to get out of the lab and be able to hone my public speaking skills. And that was essential if I'm going to be effective at all in any kind of community leadership role. I'm also a basketball official, and again, I'm not shy, but being able to communicate and present oneself is very important in that role. So I found myself being able to really grow personally and professionally and develop in my leadership skills and leadership abilities and get promoted in my various jobs. And I think that Toastmasters has helped tremendously in that respect. I find that, among other things, Toastmasters is a great place to meet new people, to be able to develop your speechcraft, to be able to talk and people will listen. That doesn't always happen in life. And it's a little bit like, I tell some people, it's a little bit like inexpensive community therapy from being so isolated sometimes, where in our daily activities of life, hustle and bustle, we might not always have the opportunity to be able to talk to somebody in a next door lab bench or on a bus or ferry or wherever it is. But Toastmasters has been an enjoyable experience for me to really focus my ideas, focus my topics, my speech, and to be able to also be on the receiving end, being able to be a good evaluator of other people's speeches and figure out how I might be able to implement some of their good techniques in my own speaking ability.
I'm curious to know, where's your humor come from? I feel like it's sort of a talent of yours, and I'm curious to know, how do you do that? How do you bring that into your speeches?
I think that I have always enjoyed comedy, humor ever since I was young, and been able to be involved in storytelling from when I was little. I think that being able to come up with a humorous speech takes a little bit of effort to not only have the maybe some ideas and topics, but to really practice that. I think about Jerry Seinfeld and other professional comedians and how I've learned that they really spend many, many hours developing their skits, their speeches, their humor, and I wanted to be able to add at least some of that as much as I can in my speechcraft and everyday life. I think that some stories from my mother and my dad and just everyday life, working on farms, working in every aspect of life, there's always stories that people can draw from. And then I think it's important to be able to add a little bit of lightheartedness to maybe break the ice, be able to relate to people, that sort of thing. And so it's just something that I enjoy.
Yes, I can tell. And I feel like that was the distinct, I guess, flavor, you could say,
Mhm.
that you had with your speeches. I noticed your humor and how, because it's not always easy, for people to
Mm.
do humor. Some people can be more serious. Some people feel really uncomfortable, I think, with making fun of themselves or being
Mhm.
self-deprecating. And I feel like you don't have that. You
Mm.
don't have that problem.
I have confidence in my ability. I have a strong scientific, logical mind. I've been a teacher at elementary and high school and college levels. I am able to take complex subjects, whether it's math or science, public health, and be able to explain that to people and help them. And I enjoy helping students learn. So I don't have that, have a self-depreciating type of a style, but I do have to. I enjoy humor. I enjoy lightheartedness at times. Um, for example, I went to a WNBA Seattle Storm game yesterday, and they were amazing seats, almost right down by the floor. And I didn't even know they were going to be that close. Section AA, right behind where the players and the coach sit. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I've watched a number of these shows on ESPN. I might be on TV. And sure enough, I was. And I felt like Mike Wistowski from Monsters Incorporated. I'm on TV. Um, it was just fun. And I was looking for myself, like, oh yeah, there I am. So I don't know. It's just fun. It's just sometimes nice to enjoy the little things in life like that and be lighthearted about it. Sometimes people will be very intense. They like certain players, certain teams, and they get a little bit agitated, negative about it. I've been on the receiving end as a basketball official. I really just enjoyed the game, and I wasn't really partial to one team or the other or any particular player. I enjoyed all of them. I think they were great athletes. I think it's really amazing to see these people um, doing all their activities, the defense, the offense, the athleticism, and I was just happy to be there, and I was just enjoying it. And I get joy out of express my joy in some of my humor.
So you mentioned that you were a teacher. That's basically essentially a public speaking role where you're in front of an audience and talking in front of people. What was the distinction? Why did you feel the need to even join Toastmasters if you were already developing that skill?
So that's something that I've done part time at different times. I was a director of a inner city of a education. English as a second language for inner city youth in the Bronx. I've been a teacher, an instructor in the Air Force for medical topics. I've taught at high schools, chemistry and math, sometimes just part time and filling in. I've been a college professor. But early on, while public speaking is something that many people will get a little bit of occasionally through school, through uh, middle school, high school, and a little bit of college. It's it's a skill that really has to be honed. I've heard the expression Toastmasters is like going to the equivalent of going to a gym for working out, but it's like that for public speaking. You have to really practice and get better and better at it. Simone Biles is a great uh, gymnast, a world renowned gold medalist. And if you've ever seen her activities, it's just amazing. There's no way that these athletes, Tom Brady is a quarterback for the New England Patriots or any person like that. There's no way they're going to there's no way they're going to be that good without practice. And if you think about the people who are really great public speakers, they don't just simply stumble into it, open their mouth and start talking. They really practice and they hone that skill. I've talked to other people who were elected officials, city council members, mayors, and sometimes they didn't understand what Toastmasters was. One person I knew, he said, well, I know how to talk. I don't need to go to some program to learn how to talk. But he was frequently getting into arguments and conflicts with his fellow council members and his constituents, and he wasn't reelected. And as much as I was trying to be a friend and be a mentor, it was really hard to be supportive of somebody who's has a very caustic, negative style. And really, it's unfortunate because I think that if you take the time to really think about public speaking and what you want to say and how you want to say it, how you want to deliver your message, it's not just the message that you intend to say. It's the words you say, how you say it, your nonverbal communication, how you relate with people. That makes all the difference. It's not always just what you do, it is, but how you do it that makes all the difference. And the people who are going to be very effective in life, in any role, in any job, you are going to be people who can be effective public speakers. Even though I had been involved in teaching and I can know this particular subject matter, you're not always able to go around with a lesson plan or a book or a PowerPoint presentation wherever you are. You're not always able to just stop everybody in an elevator or in a hallway and say, well, let me pull up my magic PowerPoint presentation. You have to be able to have your 30-second, 2-minute elevator speech. As a politician or any other situation, you need to be able to do that. And that's another thing that Toastmasters teaches, the impromptu 1 to 2 minute table topics or evaluation speeches or any other situation. So we also need to be cognizant of other people's time. What are we saying? Making sure we're not meandering and being respectful of other people's times. You develop very quickly an idea of what a 5 to 7 minute amount of time is, or 1 to 2 minute amount of time, or 10 to 12 minute in Toastmasters as you develop your speeches. And that's very important because you want to be able to know, is this just something you're going to give somebody just a little bit of information so they can ask more questions and come back? You're going to give them a little bit more, maybe a 4 or 5 minute speech, but again, beginning, say what you want to say, wrap it up, or you're going to be able to give a little bit longer time or a full presentation. However you do it, it's really important to have these skills. I found that in science companies that I worked at, I've sat through my fair share of presentations that droned on in a monotone way, and pretty soon you're nodding, your eyelids are drooping, you're nodding your heads, and you're trying to stay awake. Nobody likes that. And I like to be a little more lively, and I like to be able to convey the concept, the message, and help people understand what it is that I'm trying to explain. And I get a lot more enjoyment out of that, and I think so does my audience. So Toastmasters has helped me in every aspect of my career, even though with teaching, yes, there's some of that, but it's only gotten better with Toastmasters.
Wow. That takes me to 3 things actually comes up when after you share that. Bobby, who I interviewed in the previous second podcast that we've done, second episode, who's been in Toastmasters for 30 years. She always says that when you're speaking to the audience, it's about creating a dialogue. It's a conversation. You want to keep people engaged. And when I was doing the officer installation at You Speak Easy, Michael Nile, who is the president of their Toastmasters, he's been in their club for 13 years, on Bainbridge, he said that you want to keep people engaged. That's a top priority in Toastmasters when you're speaking. Anyone can talk. Anyone can speak off of their mind, speak their mind, and share their opinion about something, but how well are you able to actually engage with your audience and help them to want to listen to the message that you're conveying? That takes persuasion, that takes practice. And essentially you were talking about when you're discussing honing in on these skills is you're talking about preparation,
Mhm.
right? It's Toastmasters is a way for you to establish sort of a mental exercise. How do you organize your thoughts? There was a
Mhm.
guest who showed up at the meeting last night and she did a table topics and she had a really good story. This is a story that she's thought about from her childhood, but
Mhm.
she didn't know how to convey that story to the audience. She wasn't sure exactly how to organize her thoughts. So she was sort of stumbling over her ideas, even though it seemed like she had a really good story she wanted to share. But how effective was she at sharing that story, right? Toastmasters gives you a way for you to, it paves a way for you to be more effective with your storytelling.
Mhm.
And then the last thing you said, I think you mentioned some sort of like a exercise, but Michael Nile, he did his a speech for his club last night, and he kept talking about um, confidence. And
Mhm.
confidence is a exercise. He kept doing this. It's an exercise. It's a muscle. You have to learn how to build it. And when you show up each time for that Toastmasters meeting, or you're doing a presentation at a conference, you're pushing that confidence muscle up. You're building it further and further. As we're building it further and further, the next thing you know, you have that ability to just step up in front of a crowd and you're not second guessing yourself and you're not leaning so heavily into self-doubt
Mhm.
and thinking you can't do it. But thank you for sharing that. That was really interesting. And I love hearing that story about how you talk about your friend, you paint the contrast, you talk about your friend who had a hard time communicating to people. People are like, we don't want to support you. And we do everything in community. We get things done in community. So
Mhm.
that's a very important skill, is knowing how to get along with others. So they want to be here to work for you or around you.
I think that confidence is really important. One of the things you mentioned is confidence is very important, and it's something that you build in so many things that we do in life. You're an artist. You started at one point, and your skills grow. I am a scientist. I started working at the lab bench, and as you become more and more experienced with the lab work, I when experiments aren't going correctly, I clean the whole bench, I clean everything, all my glassware, and I break things down into manageable pieces and start fresh. Um, I ride bicycles. I do started off, I thought, well, how can people be riding a bicycle in a busy city like Seattle alongside traffic? And it took me a while to figure that out, or how to become a basketball referee, or how to do woodworking, or any number of things, how to handle a saw or drills or all these things. And you start with little projects, and you build your work your way up and build up your skills, and you build up your confidence. And yes, you build up that confidence. And in public speaking, some of it is there's preparation, but there's going to be times when you are not necessarily in a pre-planned, scheduled speaking environment where you have to be able to speak off the cuff. Politicians, business leaders are taught that they have to do that, and anybody else can as well. And having gone through the process of public speaking and developing skills and developing speeches, short and medium and longer speeches, gives people, again, that kind of experience to build up their skills, build up their speech craft, and to build up their confidence and know what to say, how to say it, how to pivot, how to know when we're not engaging people, if we've started to talk too much, and be able to really bring it back and focus on the summary, the main point, so that we don't lose people or frustrate people, and so that we can be respectful of people's time. So I think that, yes, Toastmasters in many ways is very important, and it's something that, quite frankly, is useful for people in every aspect of life. And I think that more people should be involved in doing that.
I would love to honor the time. So we are going to finish on this last thought. I just want to share that if you don't find yourself, if you don't find a way to get in front of a real audience or real people who are of a variation from different walks of life, it's really hard for you to understand how to really connect with others. And I think it's easy for people, if you're sitting behind a computer or a camera, to think, oh, well, perhaps what I'm saying is relatable. But I feel like not most people, but some people live in their own fantasy land of how their ideas or their concepts come through to others. Toastmasters, it helps to create a reality check for you and show you, how do people relate to your ideas? How do people relate to the way that you talk or you communicate? You won't really know unless you have a real audience. Is there a final thing that you would like to offer before we end this podcast, Roger?
People, what my advice would be, think about what your goals, your aspirations are, and how can you achieve that. And Toastmasters can help you do that. I think that we all have our jobs, our daily activities, but do we take time with the busy schedule to think about yourself? What is your story? What do you want to say? You need to be able to tell your story, or it won't get told, or maybe somebody else will tell it for you and you might not like it. Toastmasters is an opportunity for you to hone your skills, to develop your leadership, develop your confidence, go forward and communicate and enjoy life.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week for another episode of Toast and Tea.